Epithalamion by Edmund Spenser. Identify the pen name of Edmund Spenser. Immerito. Identify the historical period of Edmund Spenser. 15th century to 16th century. If the poet Spenser not been a great poet, he would have been a great painter. For which is the device, Spenser is the first Greek English master. Great English master. Alliteration, onomatopoeia. Dash begins with an invocation to the muses. Epithalamion. What is the genre of Edmund Spenser? Epic poem. Who is the poet mentioned Spenser, whom I dare to be known to think a better teacher than Scotus or Achilles? John Milton. Who is called as the English Virgil? Spenser. Which is the work of Spenser published under the pseudonym Immerito? The Shepherd's Calendar. To whom the ode celebrates hopeful, thankful and sunny in Epithalamion? Elizabeth Boyle. What type of poem is Epithalamion? Ode. Who was Spenser's bride? Elizabeth. In which year was Epithalamion written? 1594. In which city was it published? London. Who was the publisher of Epithalamion? Ponsonby. In which volume was Epithalamion included? Amoretti. How many sonnets are in Amoretti? 89. What is the name of the library that holds a copy? Folger. How many complete copies of the first edition exist? 6. What is the total number of stanzas in Epithalamion? 24. How many lines are in the poem? 433. What is the rhyming scheme of most stanzas? ABA, BCC. Which stanza has a different structure? 15th stanza. How many lines does the last stanza have? 7. What is the last stanza called? Envoy. How many lines does the 15th stanza have? 17. What is the rhyme scheme of the 15th stanza? FEGGHH. What number of lines does each stanza usually have? 18. What does the structure metaphorically represent? Year. What is the poetic theme of Epithalamion? Marriage. What is the name of the short poems in the volume? Anacreontics. What does Epithalamion celebrate? Wedding. He learned a sister which have oftentimes starting line of dash. Epithalamion. How many muses does Spenser invoke? 9. Which mythological musician is referenced in stanza 1? RPS. What does the groom ask the muses to do in stanza 2? Awaken. What does the groom emphasize in stanza 2? Marriage. Who are called to decorate the wedding path in stanza 3? Nymphs. Which mythology influences in Epithalamion? Greek mythology. Who is the sun god mentioned in stanza 5? Poebus. What natural event marked the time in stanza 5? Sunrise. What creatures sing to welcome the bride? Birds. What is the central theme of stanza 5? Impatience. Whose eyes are compared to the sun in stanza 6? Bride. Which celestial body is mentioned as more bright than Hesperus? Sun. Who are the daughters of delight? Nymphs. Who is the goddess of love mentioned in stanza 6? Venus. What does Spenser personify in stanza 6? Time. Which natural cycles participate in the ceremony? Seasons. What does light symbolize in stanza 7? Joy. What instrument do women play in the stanza 8? Timbrels. Which goddess is the bride compared to in stanza 9? Artemis. What is Artemis also called? Poheb. Stanza 9, line 2. What color is the bride's dress? White. What fruits are the bride cheeks compared to? Apples. What fruit are the bride's lips compared to? Cherries. What is the bride's neck compared to? Marble tower. What does the groom prize in stanza 11? Spirit. What does he compare her inner beauty to? Medusa. What does Medusa's gaze to? Stone. Where does the bride enter in stanza 12? Main altar in a church. What religious event happens in stanza 13? Blessings. What god is mentioned in stanza 14? Bacchus. What is the Bacchus associated with wine? Wine. What is the Bacchus associated with wine? What celestial event does the groom realize? Solstice. What is special about the summer solstice? Longest. What changes in the groom's tone in stanza 15? Realization. What does the speaker focus on in stanza 16? Time. What part of the day approaches in stanza 16? Dusk. Which celestial body does the speaker invoke? Star. Which goddess is the bride compared to? Maya. Who is Maya's divine partner? Zeus. Who is Maya's son? Hermes. What time of day arrives in stanza 18? Night. What takes the bride's place in stanza 18? Offspring. What does the speaker beg the readers to do? Ignore. Who does the poet call upon in stanza 20? Venus. What emotion dominates stanza 20? Joy. What does stanza 20 celebrate? Passion. What theme is emphasized in stanza 20? Desire. Who is addressed in stanza 21? Cynthia. What celestial body does Cynthia represent? Moon. Who was Cynthia's lover? Endymion. Which goddess is invoked in stanza 22? Juno, Hera. What is Juno the goddess of? Marriage. What celestial beings are called upon in stanza 23? Gods. What does Spencer reflect on in stanza 24? Ode. How does Spencer calls the ode? Ornament. What tradition does he follow in stanza 24? Elizabethan. What is the main theme of Epithalamion? Marriage. How does the poem describe the wedding day? Happy. What literary device is used throughout the poem? Imagery. What does the poem express for the couple future? Hopes. Which muse is associated with epic poetry? Calliope. Which muse represent history? Clio. Who is the muse of hymns? Polyhymnia. Which muse is linked to the flute? UGTRB. Who is the muse of light verse and dance? Terpsichore. Which muse inspires lyric choral poetry? Eroto. Who is the muse of tragedy and comedy? Melpomene and Thalia.